Before we begin, I'd like to quickly remind you guys that this game is in early access, so it's possible that by the time you watch this review, some things that I address here may have already been fixed and or changed. I'd also like to send out a big thank you to CASPIAN Interactive for sending me an early review code. So, as most of you know, I've been going through my very first playthrough of Dark Souls on stream. Bird brains almost got me. Camera almost got me. They both just fell. Which is nice. Can I kick them? I've had so much fun with it that I ended up getting sort of addicted to the Souls genre, so I started digging around on the Steam store and eventually I came upon this game. In Usurper, you play as a hero, and I put that in quotation marks seeing as you're literally so greedy that you ended up getting your soul sucked into the big baddie's crystal dimension. Now you have to find a way to get out of this predicament by using the Usurper's blade to take over the bodies of your enemies, and that's pretty much it. It's pretty straightforward, really. Presentation-wise, I enjoyed the game's simple art style. It's very reminiscent of something like Dungeon Defenders, which is one of my favorite games of all time. The lighting is very well done and really nails the atmosphere the developers are going for in these environments. Weapons, shields, magic effects look very nice, characters look spooky and interesting, skeletons look bony. All around, Usurper is a pleasant game to look at. However, the same can't really be said about the UI and the menus. It has a very placeholder look to it, which I'm hoping is exactly that, a placeholder. When I'm using a controller, for example, the left stick controls my mouse cursor and acts like, well, a mouse. It doesn't really highlight the options on the menus like you would normally expect when you're playing with a controller. I thought this was quite strange, so I ended up just going back to using my mouse whenever I needed to use the game menus. While the font itself looks fitting to the game's theme, sometimes it can look a bit strange and even misaligned with the text box. In my opinion, this kind of game requires a basic UI that's still intuitive to the player while not being obtrusive. Dark Souls has 500 times the budget this game has, obviously, but it's the best example of what a simplistic UI should look like. Some games even straight up copied it. At its core, Usurper is an action RPG roguelite with Souls combat. You have your usual dodge, parry, light and strong attacks, but with a little bit of a twist. With the Blade of the Usurper, you can take over the bodies of your enemies, which means you gain their stats, weapons, and use them as your own personal Megazord until they die and you have to find another host, or you switch bodies once again. I personally really enjoyed this mechanic, and I think it's quite clever, especially if in the future there's a larger variety of enemies. So far I've only found a bunch of skeletons. The combat, however, can only really be described in one word: slow. Slow is the name of the game here. Being aggressive will get you killed 90% of the time. The game wants you to be careful at all times. It quickly becomes a little dance of wait for the enemy to attack, dodge, and then attack yourself. This makes it incredibly disengaging. The game actively punishes you for trying to be even a little bit aggressive. In Dark Souls, for example, you can still be aggressive even if it is risky, but in Usurper it's simply not an option. It also doesn't really help when the game throws more than one enemy at you. It can get quite frustrating when you're trying to kill one enemy and his buddy attacks right as you were going for an opening. Either that or you get stun locked and just die. I actually came across a funny bug where I engaged so many enemies that the AI didn't really know who should attack first, so they just kind of stood around and waited for me to kill them without fighting back at all. It's honestly a shame that the combat is the way it is, because the animations in this game are incredibly well done. I was quite impressed. It felt like they were motion captured with how fluid they looked. But it's all so slow that you get animation locked when you attack and can't quickly dodge or even shield yourself, which leads to you reading "perished" once again on your screen. And perish you will, because this game is supposed to be tough and will not let you catch any breaks. Between the aforementioned multiple enemies running at you, you also have traps sprinkled around, which can also be used against your enemies, to be fair. You have large skeletons that don't get staggered when you hit them, which makes it hard to dodge their attacks simply because they have longer reach. I also found some of them that didn't take any damage at all, but this was most likely due to a bug, so it's fine. And finally, all weapons except the Blade of the Usurper have pretty low durability. which is something I personally hate. I hated it in Breath of the Wild, I will probably hate it forever. That's just a personal thing. Perhaps it just needs to be tweaked a bit, because I found myself using the blade more often than anything else, even if some chests give you weapons at times. Speaking of the blade, you have this bar right here. That is your Usurper bar, and you need it to be filled a certain amount to be able to take over another body. The only ways I found to charge it are by hitting the enemies with the blade, which gives you a tiny little bit of energy, or hoping that when the enemy dies, they drop some energy. But you better grab it quickly because the enemy drops in this game disappear in about 3 seconds flat. If, heavens forbid, you find yourself naked and this bar is not filled up enough or empty, you either play even more defensively than you already do to try and charge it up, or you die incredibly quickly. More likely than not, you will die, especially if you're up against multiple enemies. When you die, you get transported back to your hub world. Here you will meet up with your tutorial vendor friend once again, where you can trade the gold you found by defeating enemies or breaking jars and barrels, which, thank you devs by the way, I absolutely love that. I absolutely hate it when there's a lot of barrels and jars scattered around in games but they never have anything in them, so thank you for that. You can buy weapons and magic scrolls that you've unlocked, you can even buy bodies that you've previously possessed, or you can store gold at the shop. Doing this enough times grants you a skill point, which you can use to upgrade your soul. You can also find skill points by activating shrines inside the dungeons, but bear in mind that the shrine will take a percentage of your gold when you activate it. Once you've done your shopping and spent your skill points, you're ready to once again go into the portal and try your luck again. And this is pretty much where the loop of the game lies. You possess enemies, kill things, explore the area for gold, try to activate all the shrines to get skill points and go to the next floor, you eventually die, spend said skill points to grow stronger, and hopefully go farther on your next run. On paper, this is great and I like it a lot. However, the combat is simply not fun or engaging enough to keep this loop going on for long. Every death added to my frustration and made me focus more on how fighting my enemies simply isn't entertaining enough and feels more like a waste of time, rather than me focusing on looking forward to upgrading my character and pushing onwards. Something that could potentially make the game easier is the co-op. I've not tried it out yet, mainly because I have no friends, but I'm very happy to see its inclusion and I absolutely thank the devs for implementing it. Perhaps it would make the combat a bit more bearable, but then again, I feel like playing with friends makes everything more fun. I know it sounds like I despise this game, but that's really not the case here. Usurper is a game that has great potential. It has a lot of interesting ideas, mechanics, and a pretty good roguelite loop. And to add to that, it looks great. It has a simple art style and the lighting is fantastic. But this potential is being held back by a very slow and dull combat system that I feel needs to be reworked in order to add and heighten the other mechanics and ideas. While I am a little disappointed, I understand that it's still in early access, and I firmly believe that the developers will listen to the feedback and make the game better, and I will absolutely review it again after some time has passed. However, I can't really recommend it right now for its asking price. Maybe you'll have a better time if you play it in co-op, but if you're planning on tackling the Crystal Dimension by yourself, you're probably not gonna have fun. Unless, of course, you know, you're into that.